this opportunity.
This office is also working with federal and corporate affairs. How do they blend with the internationalization project?
That's an excellent question. The U.S. Department of State and the U.S. Departments of Education and the U.S. Department of Defense, actually all federal agencies have international programs. The Fulbright program comes under the Bureau of Education and Cultural Affairs of the State Department, as do the scholarship programs, which I'd like to talk about in a minute, the Boren program, the Humphrey program, and the Gilman program. The Department of Education enabled us to establish our multi-language learning center, not only to strengthen Spanish and English on the island as a minority Hispanic serving institution, but also to offer those critical need languages. The National Science Foundation, Department of Agriculture have international research projects. So the federal agencies play a great role. Likewise, most of the jobs that are going to be created in the future are going to be created by small businesses and by the private sector. So our chancellor, again, and our university has a very specific mission to build partnerships. We have regional economic developments and build partnerships with the private sector. And we are working not only with state government, but with private companies to identify internships for our students, and not just in business, but in all disciplines. We have the International School of Hospitality and Culinary Arts, education, health sciences, so that all students in all disciplines have an opportunity to have that internship, which will give them eventually different and diverse career options.
Which have been UNI's most important outcomes or highlights during these past 2 years?
Okay. The two most important outcomes or highlights of our internationalization program, first I would say is the Fulbright Scholars Program, because we have made a very strong commitment to inviting the occasional lecturers, and we've been very successful in competing now for 2 scholar in residences. We mentioned one from Brazil, who teaches Portuguese and helped us develop the curriculum at our multi-language learning center, and we also have another scholar in residence coming from China to teach Mandarin Chinese in August.
This year?
Yes, who will be also working at
the
multi-language.
Are you enrolled?
What I'm going to be, I'm going to be,
okay.
oh yes.
They'll have to wait for me.
And second, and of equal importance, I suppose, strategically for our university, the most important is our study abroad and international student exchange program. We've always had students that go abroad under bilateral agreements, which UNI has had for many years, but we established a formal agreement as a member of what's called ISEP, the International Student Exchange Program. It was founded many years ago, and actually in the 60s when it was under USIA, later run by Georgetown. This is not just signing a piece of paper. This means that you have an international programs coordinator who works with the student and the academic advisors to identify what university abroad is going to be best for their curriculum, for their degree, that helps them with their orientation. We have a very gifted international coordinator, Leanne Albrook-Chacon of my office, and in every country around the world that we send our students. We have a student now in India, in the University of Hyderabad. There is an ISEP coordinator that helps that student to weave through all the academic and other tunnels that they must go through, if I may say. Now, we don't just limit it to ISEP. We have bilateral agreements, and what we are working on aggressively now with our deans is developing the student exchange programs, because one of our tall challenges in the coming years is really to increase the number of exchange students at UNI. So we're putting in place the things that are necessary, the housing and the support systems that students really depend upon and parents expect a university is going to provide for their students. And again, this is under the leadership of our chancellor, so I want to give him a lot of credit for this.
And we have to make a brief pause. Amigas y amigos, no se retiren, regresamos en breve. Continuamos conversando con la señora Ann Howard Tristani. You mentioned in the first segment the importance of the Hubert Humphrey, the Benjamin Gilman, and the Boren scholarships at UNI. Could you describe these scholarships and their importance for our faculty and students?
Indeed. And let me make a distinction. The Hubert H. Humphrey Fellowship Program is a mid-career professional development program that is sponsored by the U.S. Department of State, Education, Cultural Affairs, and all of these programs are administered by the Institute of International Education. Now, as part of our internationalization effort, we have been privileged at our university to invite these scholars who are at some 10 to 12 universities in the United States to lecture. At our university, we had the Vice Minister of Tourism of Ecuador who came to, and who's the Dean of the Hospitality School of Cuenca University, come and talk to our hospitality students. The two key programs that are most important for our university are the Gilman Scholarship and the Boren. Okay. The Gilman Scholarship is named after Benjamin Gilman, Congressman of New York, and that scholarship provides funds for students who otherwise, due to economic reasons, would otherwise not be able to study abroad. And if you want to study abroad, you can get a $5,000 grant, and if you want to study a critical need language, which is defined by the Department of State and Department of Defense as languages that are needed for our country's national security, you get an additional $3,000. We are very proud at UNI too. In the last 2 years, we've had 3 Gilman Scholars. Now, the Boren Scholarship, named for Senator David Boren of Oklahoma, is a bit different. It has scholarships and fellowships. You can receive a full-year scholarship up to $20,000 for a Boren scholarship, or a fellowship for 2 years up to $30,000. Now, you have to be committed to obviously not only wanting to study abroad, but to studying a critical need language, and that you would study in countries outside of Europe, Australia, and New Zealand. So obviously priority countries of Asia, the Middle East, Latin America would be a priority. And then there is a commitment, which is frankly a great opportunity, that you'll work in one of the federal government agencies for a year following your scholarship. And your research, your work, has to be related to national security, but this is defined very broadly. If you're in medicine, it can relate to public health. If you're specializing in the environment, it can relate to environmental degradation or population growth. If you're in foreign affairs or history, then it'll be more traditional areas like national security. So those are just 2 of many. I would encourage students particularly to look at the website of the Institute of International Education, because there are many, many scholarships that are sponsored all over the world for engineering students, those that are specializing in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. There are special scholarships just for those students.
Universidad del Este ended recently and successfully its American Council on Education's Internationalization or laboratory. How did the Universidad del Este get into this laboratory, and which were the outcomes of this participation? Okay.
First of all, our Chancellor, Alberto Maldonado Ruiz, serves on the International Committee, Initiatives Committee, I believe it's called, of the American Council on Education. And through his leadership, we realized that being part of what they call a learning community, being part of other universities that are going through the same process of what does internationalization really mean,